You know, what would I go back in time and tell my younger self if I had the chance? One day you're gonna review movies for a living. You remember when you stayed out past curfew? Yeah, don't do that. James, you are going to be lactose sensitive. Trust me. You know what? I'm gonna listen to the lactose sensitive comment. Yeah, I'm gonna go take some lactose pills now. What's going on, everyone? James here with another real review, and today I'm finally so excited to talk about The Atom Project, the movie that I've kind of been anticipating for a little while. Thanks so much to Netflix for giving me the chance to watch this early for review. It hits streaming March 11th, so when you see it, guys, I can't wait to have that conversation down below in the comments. And hey, before we get into what I liked about the movie and what I didn't like too much about the film, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies and TV like this all the time. So if you do too, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit the thumbs up button. And hey, again in the comments, let me know what's your favorite sci-fi movie, because this is like a sci-fi movie, just, well, without all the complex time travel stuff. The film is directed by Shawn Levy, who actually directed Free Guy, and it stars, well, Ryan Reynolds himself, Mark Ruffalo, and Jennifer Garner. Now, like I mentioned, this is a movie all about time travel. It surrounds a pilot named Adam who goes and tries to come to terms with his late father while also trying to save the world, but somehow ends up finding his younger self, young Adam, and they, well, go on this adventure together. So there's a lot of familial elements to this story, a lot of father-son elements that'll probably tug on some heartstrings, and some of it worked for me and some of it didn't. But we're gonna start off on an optimistic note, guys, and get right into the positives. And that does begin with this sense of wonder for me that the film really allowed me to sink my teeth into. In the first like 30-35 minutes of this movie, guys, I kind of felt like a kid watching a sci-fi movie again. Shawn Levy's direction and the score really adds to this awesome sense of adventure, and again, it did make me kind of want to explore this universe. There's something about the way that this movie was shot that actually felt pretty good in the first half, where I was really enjoying going on this adventure, uncovering some truths and even some hidden mysteries that both young Adam and adult Adam, I can't just say Adam, both of them were sort of discovering for themselves as they were going on this journey together. And when the movie does attempt to explain this timeline and how time travel is even possible in this universe, it's never anything too dense. This isn't Interstellar, you guys, okay? So I think kids and adults can probably enjoy this sci-fi adventure. There are going to be some angles here that might get a little confusing for kids, but for teens and even adults, I think that you're going to find a lot of enjoyment here. And it's funny because going into this movie, Ryan Reynolds was the only face I was seeing, but I think the biggest takeaway here, the standout actor for me, is who plays young Adam, and that's Walker Scobell. He is great here. He has amazing line delivery, and he really is mirroring Ryan Reynolds, which is kind of hard for a kid to do because Ryan has this very unique way of delivering his lines and his punchlines and all the humor, but when you put them both together side by side, I felt that their chemistry worked the best here. As someone who wasn't really the biggest fan of Deadpool and Deadpool 2, I found myself actually enjoying Ryan Reynolds in Free Guy, and he does carry over a lot of that same charisma and charm into the Atom Project. I found myself laughing at some of these stupid jokes, but then there were some emotional moments that really helped ground the film, and those include Ryan Reynolds sometimes, one of them being a moment between Walker Scobell and Ryan Reynolds where they're having a conversation outside of a motel, and it actually kind of got me in the heart a little bit. And then there's another emotional beat in this movie that actually works pretty darn well with Ryan Reynolds and Jennifer Garner at a bar. Even though some of those moments, yes, do go by a little quickly, I think that it was in those scenes that I found myself resonating with the movie the most. But even outside of all the dramatic moments, guys, this movie does do a decent job with the action. Because with any good sci-fi movie, sometimes you gotta have great action. And I love that this film doesn't get like too out there in terms of its strange gadgetry. The gadgetry here is actually fun. And there's one bit, you know, where they kind of make reference to a lightsaber because it does look kind of like a lightsaber, this weapon that Adam uses. But I do think that I enjoyed all of the special effects and the jets and the wormhole sequence and even these soldiers that kind of just come out of nowhere. It's you know, the villains of the movie, of course, and it was really neat just to see how Shawn Levy was playing with all of this, and I thought it flowed pretty well. A lot of the action was shot pretty darn well too. But what adds to the action sometimes really is the soundtrack, which is incredibly solid. You had Boston playing, Led Zeppelin, some classic rock, like it really worked for the vibe of the film, and it resonated with me as well because I do like classic rock, so I enjoyed seeing how they blended that together. Heck, even Zoe Saldana's entrance here as Adam's wife Laura was pretty darn cool, and that's due in large part to the soundtrack. And sort of circling back to the humor of the film, there's a lot in this script that is just punchline after punchline after punchline. Now, the overabundance of jokes is a blessing and a curse because it helps keep things pretty fresh for the most part, but on the other hand, it's just too much humor sometimes. There's just not enough drama in the moments that it really should have mattered most. For the most part, though, I was laughing at some of the jokes, and I wasn't like keeling over, but at least I was chuckling, and it did kind of add to the dynamic appeal to this film, because you have sci-fi fans who want to just focus in on the drama, and then you have sci-fi fans who just come for the humor that you come to expect from Ryan Reynolds. So you kind of get the best of both worlds in some moments. But guys, when it comes to the other side of this film, the negatives that didn't really work for me, the list is a little bit longer than I was hoping it would be. And for me, it starts with the acting itself. Now listen, there are some good performances here, and I did like some of the individual standout performances like Walker Scobell, but I feel like the chemistry between the cast, it didn't really gel. None of the actors for me felt like they got into a groove together. Zoe and Ryan don't have too much chemistry, sadly. Jennifer Garner and Mark Ruffalo don't have a lot of chemistry. And even moments between father and sons, you know, both Adams and Mark Ruffalo's character, I just didn't really care for it too much. And it did feel to me that the writing was to blame partly for this feeling, because there's a lot of forced dialogue here and moments that feel like they're very emotional out of nowhere, where you get into some humor and some action and all of a sudden it's dramatic. And you have this moment where you're coming back down to earth, but you get down there too quickly, and it's almost like shocking your system. At least it shocked my system, because some of these dramatic moments just don't feel like they naturally fit in the moment. So I kind of wanted a little bit less of the forced dialogue in those scenes and more of the natural approach that I was expecting from a Mark Ruffalo, Jennifer Garner, and even Zoe Saldana. And when it comes to the antagonist in this film, guys, I didn't really care too much for Saurian. Catherine Keener plays Saurian, this villain who's basically trying to make time travel a thing, and I won't spoil anything, of course, but what I will say is that her performance was not convincing. Every time the movie tries to showcase the antagonist in this movie, and what should have made me feel passion for our heroes and cheering them on and booing our villains, it just actually didn't make me feel anything. And that's never a good thing for the plot itself, because that kind of weakens the story, especially in the second half, where it really kind of leans into Saurian and, you know, Adam's father and their supposed history that they didn't really dive into too much. So a lot of things were working against the movie in this regard. And I want to tell you that this movie is fun through and through, because it definitely tries to be, but I just kind of felt like I was coasting in the middle of the film. Some scenes sort of just passed me by, and I didn't really feel like they impacted me at all. So I think maybe in those moments, it's because I am a fan of sci-fi movies, and this was kind of watered down to a degree, so it's probably going to resonate with kids, right? I do think that kids are going to come away and say like, oh, those moments were fun, or, you know, people who are looking for a laid-back comedy, sci-fi adventure might enjoy that. But there are moments where I'm like, yeah, could you dive into the sci-fi angle just a little bit more? And then when it comes to the emotional moments that actually worked for me, the movie sort of speeds through these scenes. So the three that we were talking about earlier, I think it was like 3 scenes I mentioned in this review, all 3 of them were really good, but the movie just speeds right through them. The longest one I would have to say is probably at the bar, but even towards the end of this movie, there's this pivotal moment that comes very late in the film and just kind of breezes on by. So it made me question whether or not this movie was going to hit for others, because it didn't hit for me. So overall, you guys, I do think the Adam Project is fine. And hey, listen, that doesn't mean it's a bad film. I just think it's okay. I sort of feel like the film had a lot of potential and promise, especially with Walker Scobell and Ryan Reynolds together. There were some cool moments of action, like we mentioned. The soundtrack was awesome, and Shawn Levy really did nail the direction in the first half of the film, making me actually want to explore this world and giving me this sense of adventure and fun. But then when we get into the second half of the movie, I feel like it's a little bit weaker, but not only that, a lot of the acting from top to bottom wasn't always very consistent. And unfortunately, a lot of character moments that were supposed to be impactful didn't really make me feel much of anything. I feel like they really could have worked on the relationships between young Adam and his mother Ellie, I believe her name is, but even then, there's just not enough there for me to really believe their relationship, to believe the chemistry between these characters. And I could say that about a lot of our leads here, and even some of our supporting cast, because you would think that they would have more time together for us to feel that connection, but it never really bleeds through the screen. Now, does the film look really good? I think so, and I do think a lot of the sci-fi elements were just pretty fun. Heck, I even wanted a jet after this movie. Now, I'm not opening up any wormholes because that's a little scary, but I will tell you that the film at least kind of let me escape for a little bit. Now, for the whole movie, it didn't make me escape because there were some scenes that kind of took me out of the film, but for the most part, at least, there was that sense of adventure that I felt every now and then. So if I even had to rate the Adam Project, guys, I think I'm going a strong 3, maybe like a weak 3.5 out of 5. But again, it hits Netflix this weekend on March 11th, so I'm gonna need your comments down below. Let me know exactly what you think of the film. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you in the middle? Do you disagree with me? Let's have that conversation, guys. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit the thumbs up button as well, you guys, because even though I'm not coming away loving the Adam Project like I know a lot of my colleagues and friends are, I still don't think it was a waste of time, and thank God it wasn't over 2 hours. I think it didn't overstay its welcome either. I should probably add that to the positives. I'll go make that note. Alrighty, you guys, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.